Game of Thrones is back, baby! House of the Dragons continues to heat up and get better and better with each episode, as Season 2, Episode 6 saw some major plot moments and plot reveals for our story of the Grand Civil War of the Targaryens, the Dance of the Dragons. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to Finn Films. Join me today as we discuss everything that happened in Season 2, Episode 6 of House of the Dragon. An episode where Daemon cries, Rhaenyra has a little makeout sesh, a new mysterious dragon appears in the Vale, and a new dragon rider claims a dragon? Episode 6 opens with the Great Lannister army marching into the Riverlands. We see Lord Lannister in all of his great lion goodness. However, they make it known that they will not be engaging with Daemon at Harrenhal unless they have Aemond and Vhagar, as they are obviously afraid of Daemon and Caraxes. Back in King's Landing, Aemond is like, nah, you can't just expect to summon me, Lord Lannister, like some sort of dog. We have to remember that Aemond is now the king regent in place for Aegon. It's Aegon is still recovering from his little burn incident from his brother over the Battle of Rook's Rest. Aemond giving the order for Lord Lannister to keep moving forward into the Riverlands and onwards towards Harrenhal. Aemond also in this small council meeting has a very out-of-the-box idea, as Aemond wants to make a deal with the Triarchy, this group of pirates in the Free Cities, in order to break the blockade of King's Landing, the blockade being set up by Lord Corlys. Aemond then ordering Criston Cole to set back off with whatever of his army that he has left to head back out into the Riverlands to meet up with the rest of the Lannister host in order to retake Harrenhal. This scene ending with Aemond ultimately dismissing his mother Alicent from the council because, well, she's a woman. Back on Dragonstone, we see that the sea snake Lord Corlys of Velaryon has accepted the hand position that Rhaenyra offered last episode, as Rhaenyra is now going through with her crazy new plan to try to find more dragon riders for her plethora of dragons, as she is scouring the Westerosi history to try to find any member of a noble house that has any drop of Targaryen blood in them, and she just so happens to have one in her small council, aka one of her Queen's Guards, Sir Steffon Darkling, as she asked Sir Darkling if he would be willing to try to claim one of the dragons, specifically Seasmoke, the dragon that once belonged to Lord Laenor. Back to Harrenhal with another crazy Daemon dream, crazy Daemon vision sequence, and another callback to Season 1, specifically a scene where Viserys asked Daemon if he said the words heir for a day, referring to Viserys' dead son and how he was only heir for a day. I released a whole video last week where we really delved into the many theories of Daemon and his vision, specifically in relation to the mysterious character Alice Rivers. I highly recommend that you guys check that video out if that's something that you're interested in. It was a lot of fun going into those theories. We see that Daemon has grown even more paranoid and even more erratic, as he now seems to believe that Sir Strong is potentially plotting against him. Daemon finally swallowing his pride and asking someone for help. And who does he ask for help but none other than Alice Rivers. Alice being one of the only characters in the entire series who really seems to be able to get through to Daemon and actually is not afraid enough to tell him like it is. Alice telling him that heavy is the weight of those who rule, and that the best rulers are those who did not seek out the crown for themselves, something that is the opposite of what Daemon is currently trying to do. Alice finishing off this conversation by giving Daemon some rather ominous advice, specifically that his fortunes are going to change in 3 days' time, but we're going to get to what she means later in the video. Back on Dragonstone, we see Sir Darkling's attempt to claim Seasmoke as a dragon for his own, and it goes, well, about as horrible as you expect it to be. Seasmoke lighting up the Kingsguard Knight like a freaking candle. This scene was absolutely insane. They did an awesome job in really kind of building up the tension to this ultimate climax, baiting you into think that maybe Sir Darkling might actually be able to ride a dragon, something that we have to remember has really been only for the Targaryens. It is believed that only the Targaryens are able to ride these dragons, and that is what sets them apart from mere mortal men. That is what makes people, the common folk, people think that Targaryens are closer to gods than men, if we remember back to Viserys' conversation in Season 1, and that is because they have these dragons. Of course, Sir Darkling's attempt completely fails, the man getting lit up like a match, and the fact that they actually set real stunt workers, real stunt actors on fire when they shot these scenes, literally shooting a flamethrower at them, is absolutely insane. In Driftmark, we see our favorite two bastard brothers, Alan and Addam of Hull, the sea snake, their bastard father, offering Alan of Hull the position of first mate on his ship in the upcoming battle. A great position of honor that Alan reluctantly accepts. Up until this point, they've been basically teasing the entire season that Addam and Alan, the two brothers, are the bastard son of Lord Corlys, but they actually super confirm it in this episode. Not only do we hear the brothers actually refer to Lord Corlys as their bastard father, but we see Alan shaving his head, specifically shaving the white hair of the Targaryens, the white hair of the Valyrian race, like his father's, that is growing in, a kind of symbol of this Valyrian and Targaryen blood. In King's Landing, we see that the White Worm's propaganda tactics are finally starting to take hold as the small folk are growing more disgruntled at the lack of food due to the blockade that Rhaenyra and the Seasmoke have. As well, we see the character Ulf again, who I had mistakenly referred to as Hugh in one of the previous videos I had pulled out. If we remember, Ulf is the man who tells everyone that he is a Targaryen bastard, specifically the bastard brother of Daemon and Viserys, which would make him a dragon seed and would make him have blood of the dragon, Targaryen blood, if his story is true. Back in Dragonstone, Rhaenyra has gotten fed up with many of her small council, as she believes that the small council lords do not fear her, they do not respect her because she is a woman. As we see, Rhaenyra has picked up the sword, constantly coming to grips with her role as a woman in this society and wanting to break the chains of this sexist society, a common theme that we've seen throughout Season 2 and Season 1 of House of the Dragon. Back to King's Landing again, where we head into the small council, where Aemon names Otto Hightower his new hand of the king, much to the dismay of Lord Larys, who was very much trying to position himself to be given the honor of Hand of the King. However, we see that Larys is not able to manipulate Aemon like he is with Aegon. Suddenly, though, the maesters rush into the small council, informing the council that Aegon has regained consciousness, though it is still a long way for him to recover. Then in a tense scene, we see Aemon go and see his brother for having a little one-on-one brother alone time, as we have a nice little tense face-off here, as we see that Aegon's life is still very much in danger, as Aemon knows that should his brother speak about what happened in the battle over Rook's Rest, it would be the end to his power grab. So we have a feeling that Aemon might once again make another attempt on his older brother's life, possibly in the upcoming episodes. In the Vale, we get an extremely surprising scene where we learn that apparently there is a wild dragon that has begun roaming the Vale. This is one of the first major changes from the book Fire and Blood, as we know that there are only 3 wild dragons roaming Westeros at this time, and none of them actually seem to roost in the Vale. However, the most likely culprit, in my opinion, for this mysterious wild dragon is none other than Sheepstealer, as it seems very likely to me that they are positioning Rhaena to possibly claim this wild dragon and join the fight as a dragon rider. Back in Dragonstone, the White Worm reveals the final part of her propaganda plan, as they have sent a number of boats into the Bay of King's Landing, these boats being laden with food and bearing Rhaenyra's banners, as we know that the small folk in King's Landing are currently starving, struggling for food, this being a good tactic in order to win favor with them. Back in King's Landing, we see Alicent have a very interesting conversation with her brother Gawain, Alicent learning some new details on her youngest son, Daeron. Yeah, you forgot that Alicent had a third son, the son Daeron, who is now 16 years old. If we remember, back in Season 1, Otto sent him to ward in Hightower, and now the lad has come of age, and we must not also forget that he has a dragon of his own. Alicent very much being relieved that her youngest son is a kind young man, unlike the other two. Next, we see Elena and Alicent go to the Sept to pray for Aegon, where suddenly a massive riot begins to break out, as we see the many hordes of small folk rushing to the bay in order to grab the food that Rhaenyra has sent over on these boats. However, things begin to escalate quickly once the mob sees these two queens leaving this great Sept, as things begin to get violent, as they blame the royals for their lack of food, which is part of the White Worm's propaganda. We see an elderly man reach out to Queen Alicent, as one of Aegon's lackey Kingsguard, in a moment of fear, cuts off this poor peasant's hand, which leads to a violent uprising as the two queens are rushed out of the mob and back into the castle. Still in King's Landing, Larys has a very interesting scene with the now recovering Aegon. Larys telling Aegon about what his life is going to be like once he has fully recovered, and how he is going to be scarred and deformed.
The attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed.
Something that, of course, Larys knows all too well, having been born with a clubfoot and having been shunned by his own father since his birth. Larys tells Aegon how men around him will pity him, they will look at him, they will speak about him behind his back. But this is something that will become his weapon, as ultimately they will feel sorry for him and they will underestimate him. Larys referencing the danger as well that Aegon is in from his brother Aemond. Larys we see gaining the favor of King Aegon, worming his way into the king's ear, specifically after having been cast aside literally just in a scene prior by Aemond. Daemon has another vision where we see King Viserys mourning the death of his wife and his son. Daemon embracing his brother and telling him that you needed me and I wasn't there for you, but now I am. In a very heartwarming, very emotional scene, really the first kind of emotional scene, the first emotion that we've seen Daemon express throughout our entire series so far. Daemon suddenly waking up to receive news that old Lord Grover Tully has died, somewhat mysteriously, and even the healing powers of Alice Rivers herself wasn't enough to save him, as it seems like Alice Rivers was true to her word, and it is very likely that she was the one that actually killed Lord Grover Tully. This is important because the young heir can now mobilize the River Lords in the Riverlands and ultimately declare them for Daemon. That is, if they can maybe get Daemon to apologize for his many war crimes that he has committed in the last few episodes. As this scene ends, we see Daemon weep, possibly weeping for joy and likely weeping from the sadness of his vision, as again, I think this is one of the first real scenes of emotion that we see Daemon go through from the entire 2 seasons so far. Next, we have what I think is easily the most epic scene in this entire episode, maybe besides that mob chase scene on the steps of the Sept, where we see the great dragon Seasmoke chase Addam of Hull, one of the Valyrian bastards, over the beaches of Driftmark. Seasmoke coming face to face with Addam when suddenly the showrunners cut away. The show very much teasing the fact that Addam might have just claimed this dragon for his own and been the first non-pureblood Targaryen to claim a dragon. The final scene of our episode takes place on Dragonstone, where we see Rhaenyra once again venting to the White Worm, as with the death of Rhaenys, the White Worm has very much become kind of Rhaenyra's closest advisor. It also helps the fact that they are both women and kind of can relate to the fact that they have been constantly underestimated their entire lives. As I said, Rhaenyra once again laments how she feels that the rest of their council, even her own son, is looking down upon her because she is a woman. Rhaenyra thinking back to how she always wanted to be like Daemon. She always wanted to be carefree and most importantly wanted to be a man. We finally see trust being formed between the White Worm and Rhaenyra. The White Worm opening up on how she got this scar, a question that Rhaenyra asked her early on in season 2, specifically the scar on her neck, a story that is absolutely horrifying that I'm not really going to go into, but man, is it super up. Finally, in what might be easily the biggest surprise of the entire episode, we see these two extremely powerful and smart women begin to make out. However, their kissing session is rudely interrupted by one of Rhaenyra's Queensguard, who tells her that Seasmoke was spotted over the coast of Driftmark. But to Rhaenyra's shock, it had an unknown rider, as Rhaenyra in a fury mounts her dragon, setting out to find out who this mysterious dragon rider is. But let's be honest, we all very much know who it is. In this segment, I'm going to be discussing spoilers and potential spoilers for future episodes of House of the Dragon, so if you'd like to avoid spoilers, please skip to the time on screen down below so you can check out my final episode 6 review at the end of this video. Okay, so if you've read Fire and Blood, or you are just a Game of Thrones nerd familiar with the lore of the Dance of the Dragons, you know that eventually Rhaenyra's plan changes to recruiting dragon seeds, specifically bastards of House Targaryen. Now, we already know several bastards within our story that have Targaryen and Valyrian blood, specifically the brothers Addam and Alan of Hull. Obviously, we see literally Addam of Hull claim a dragon, claim Seasmoke in this episode, and as well we have the two bastards in King's Landing, specifically Hugh the Hammer and Ulf the White. As I said, Addam of Hull claims Seasmoke in this episode. We know this is confirmed. We know that this is what happens. As well, we know that both Hugh and Ulf do ultimately claim dragons of their own, Hugh claiming the great bronze dragon Vermithor, which I believe we see in the teaser scenes for episode 7 in this scene right here. I do believe that this is Vermithor. As well, we know that Ulf Wolf ultimately claims a dragon of his own, claiming the dragon Silverwing. However, there is the issue of the wild dragon in the Vale, which really is a kind of first major change we've seen in House of the Dragon so far. Obviously, there's been another of other kind of creative changes in House of the Dragon, like Daemon's visions, for example, but really, in my opinion, this is kind of the first real major change that we're seeing. As I said earlier on in the video, my guess for the identity of this mysterious dragon is Sheepstealer, though it is possible that it is a dragon like cannibal, but it seems more likely that this is Sheepstealer. It very much seems like the show is positioning Rhaenyra to be the rider for Sheepstealer, but we know that in Fire and Blood, she ultimately claims the dragon Morning, which was a young dragon that was actually born during the Dance of the Dragons. However, it seems that they're going to have her instead claim the dragon Sheepstealer, which would be a much bigger, much older dragon. However, we know in Fire and Blood that Sheepstealer was ultimately claimed by the dragon seed, the bastard Nettles, but so far it doesn't seem like Nettles will actually be in the story of House of the Dragon, as she hasn't been cast so far, so I'm going to believe that it seems like they're writing this character, they're omitting this character out from the story, but I guess it is possible that she could appear in later seasons, so I guess we're just gonna have to wait and find out what they do here with Sheepstealer, Rhaenyra, and ultimately if Nettles is actually in the show or not. Episode 6 of House of the Dragon was an absolutely banging episode. Game of Thrones is well and truly back, and in my opinion, it's better than ever. And with the way that things are going so far in House of the Dragon, I really do think that this series is actually going to be better than Game of Thrones as a whole when things are all said and done. If the Seasmoke chase scene wasn't the best scene of the entire episode, then it was definitely the small folk riot scene on the steps of the Great Sept. This scene was just absolutely awesome. It was really, really cool seeing how they shot it in the behind the scenes episode, specifically how they shot the scene with the guy getting his arm cut off. As well, I've said this basically every single episode for season 2, but I absolutely love what they're doing with Daemon's story in House of the Dragon, specifically his visions and the role of Alice Rivers. It was really awesome getting to see Viserys again back in our story, and we really felt like we got to see another side of Daemon in this episode, specifically what these visions are doing to his character, as this is kind of a real turning point for Daemon, as it finally seems like he is coming to terms with all of these sins that he has committed throughout his entire life. Obviously, the coveting of his brother's throne and the many selfish actions that he has taken throughout his entire life, and specifically now his anger with Rhaenyra and ultimately his ambition to claim the throne for himself, as it does seem like Daemon is finally turning a corner. I also really love the kind of nature of Alice and Daemon's relationship in the show, Alice very much being the kind of only character that we've really seen be able to kind of talk some sense into Daemon and kind of break through his kind of really thick skull. Specifically, this scene that we see in this conversation between the two of them in front of the werewood was great. Alice telling Daemon the really kind of the hard truth, specifically that those who covet the throne really make good rulers, and really heavy is the heavy is the burden of those who must rule, something that Daemon very much didn't really seem like he understood until this point. There was so many little things that happened in this episode, so many really great moments. Again, House of the Dragons focusing on the role of women in this society being shown through Rhaenys, Rhaenyra, Alicent, and the White Worm. Alicent now having basically watched her entire family be torn apart and having lost basically any and all power that she had had before, literally at the start of this episode. Alicent going from one of the most powerful characters in our story to now having all of that power basically completely stripped away from her. House of the Dragon is just so good, man. The show is really just like an absolute spectacle, and really it had to be this insane, between all of the crazy locations that they've built, all of the absolutely amazing locations that they've gone to and shot at, all of the immense level of CGI they use. I don't even want to know how much money it cost them to animate and CGI out all of these massive dragons and these dragon scenes. It's probably way too much goddamn money. And just really the performance of every single actor, from a major character to smaller characters, all of them are just so absolutely fantastic. Every scene is just top notch acting, and I really think that all of this together just leads to an absolutely fantastic show, one of the greatest shows I've seen in a long time. And to be fair, the story of the Dance of the Dragons is truly epic, so in order to get this show right? They really did have to go above and beyond in every single aspect. And I've said time and time again, I do think that House of the Dragons, when it's all said and done, will be better than Game of Thrones. And to be fair, it kind of had to be, as like I said, the story of the Grand Civil War of the Targaryens is truly epic. So they needed to go all out to get this story right. As always, though, guys, these are just my thoughts and my opinions, so please feel free to let me know yours in the comment section down below. What was your favorite moment from Season 2, Episode 6 of House of the Dragon? As always, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to help support me and to put these videos into the algorithm. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other House of the Dragons and Game of Thrones content on screen now, like our video that we released last week, where we delve into the many theories of what exactly is going on with Daemon and his dreams. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Drink your water, hug your mother. Until next time, peace, love, Adu.